7 demonic places that secretly corrupt your vibration field. We live in a world that's constantly pulling at our energy, not just through stress, distraction, or noise, but through invisible frequencies that most people never notice until it's too late. You see, your vibration field is not just spiritual fluff or New Age theory. It is real. It is the energetic architecture of your soul's presence in this dimension. It's how you interface with the world, how you attract and repel, how you heal or decay. And yet, most of us walk through life completely unaware of how certain places, physical, digital, emotional, are slowly poisoning that field, corrupting it from the inside out. And the scariest part, these places are everywhere. They look normal, harmless, even comforting, but they're not. They're energetic sinkholes, demonic constructs, not in the Hollywood horror movie sense, but in the ancient spiritual sense. They are locations that feed on your frequency by lowering it, warping it, or disconnecting it from source. And you feel it, even if you don't have the words for it. You feel it when you leave a place and you're suddenly anxious, exhausted, or angry for no reason. You feel it when you wake up after spending time there and something in your soul just feels off. That's not just bad vibes, that's spiritual corrosion.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first place we have to talk about is one that almost everyone visits daily: shopping malls and big box retail centers. These places are designed with an energetic blueprint that numbs the soul. The lighting, the layout, the music, the artificial sense, it's all engineered to disconnect you from your intuition and immerse you in unconscious consumerism. But there's a deeper layer. These places are often built over ley lines or areas of disrupted earth energy. They become hotspots for low-frequency entities that feed on confusion, greed, and emotional disconnection. You've felt it. That strange emptiness after shopping, like you've consumed but not been nourished. That's not just capitalism. That's energetic vampirism. And we keep going back, wondering why we feel worse each time, never realizing we're entering a spiritual feeding ground. The second demonic place is more hidden: certain hospitals or medical facilities. Now, I want to be clear, not all hospitals are corrupt. Many are places of healing. But some buildings, especially older ones or those built on land with unresolved trauma, become energetic war zones. I think about it, these are places where pain, fear, and death concentrate, where people are often unconscious or sedated, where grief and despair hang in the air like smoke. And if you're sensitive, you walk in and feel like you're drowning. That isn't in your head, that's residue. And in some cases, that residue becomes a doorway. There are entities that linger in these places, not malicious ghosts, but energetic intelligences that thrive in chaos and suffering. If you're not spiritually protected, they can attach to you. They don't possess your body, but they tangle your field. They whisper thoughts that aren't yours. They amplify your fears, and they feed on your disorientation. Have you ever visited someone in a hospital and walked out feeling drained, heavy, or even physically ill? That's not just emotional empathy. That's energetic contamination. And unless you cleanse yourself afterward with salt, sound, breath, sunlight, prayer, it stays with you. It lingers, it embeds, and over time it alters your baseline vibration. You become more tired, more negative, less connected to your intuition. That's not a coincidence. That's a system working exactly as designed. The third demonic place is one that's disguised as entertainment: certain nightclubs, bars, and music venues. We're not here to shame pleasure. Celebration is sacred when done consciously, but many of these environments are portals, not metaphorically, but energetically. The combination of sound frequencies, alcohol, emotional release, and spiritual disconnection opens the door for lower vibrational entities to feed. And I mean feed. When people are drunk, high, or emotionally volatile, their auric field becomes unstable. And unstable fields are like open wounds in the astral. They leak light. They attract darkness. And those dark forces don't announce themselves with horns and fire. They blend in. They ride the music. They move through the crowd. They attach to rage, lust, despair, and they stay with you. Ever notice how after a night of partying you feel more than just hungover? You feel hollow, lost, sometimes even haunted. That's because something entered your field while your guard was down. Something you can't explain. Something that didn't leave when the music stopped. And if you keep returning to that environment, it grows stronger. It becomes part of your identity. Your choices start to shift. Your thoughts become darker. You start attracting chaos. And you think it's just bad luck or poor decisions, but it's not. It's possession by degree, not full control, but subtle influence. And it's very, very real. The fourth demonic place is one that we often choose to remain in, even when we know it's killing us. Toxic homes. Some of us grew up in them. Others moved into them. Not every house is a home. Some are spiritual prisons. Wounds in the architecture. Echo chambers of unresolved trauma. And when a space is soaked in years of anger, abuse, fear, addiction, or emotional manipulation, the energy becomes dense. It breeds darkness. Not because the people are evil, but because pain is a portal. And when that pain is never transmuted, it festers. It warps the vibration of the space. You can sage it all you want. If the root energy isn't healed, it will return. Every time. Have you ever walked into a house and instantly felt sick, anxious, or depressed? Like the walls themselves were watching you? That's not superstition. That's spiritual intelligence. That's your field telling you, this place is not safe. And if you ignore it, if you stay long enough, you begin to change. You start to carry the house within you. The arguments echo in your mind. The emotions replay in your dreams. You start becoming the very thing you swore you'd never be. That's how powerful space is. That's how deeply these places corrupt. So let me ask you something most people never ask. Where do you go when no one is watching? When you're tired, vulnerable, or desperate, what spaces do you retreat into? And are they healing you or hollowing you out? Because if you want to raise your vibration, it's not enough to meditate or journal. You have to audit your environments. You have to become ruthless about what you expose your field to. You have to understand that not all darkness is obvious. Some of it hides in plain sight. Some of it looks like comfort. Some of it looks like love. But it's not. And if you don't learn to see through the masks, you'll spend your life trying to heal what's actually being corrupted daily by the places you keep returning to. Silent parasites, the digital temples that drain your soul. There's a new kind of temple on earth, one without stone walls, incense, or sacred chants. It doesn't require your feet to enter, only your attention. And it's open 24/7, built not to uplift, but to extract. These are the digital temples: your phone, your feed, your screen. And while they may appear harmless, even useful, they are some of the most spiritually corrosive places on the planet. Not because of the technology itself, but because of the frequencies that live inside them. Frequencies that do not serve your evolution. Frequencies that hijack your awareness, warp your emotions, and feed off your unconscious engagement. They are not neutral. They are designed to keep you vibrating low, and the longer you stay plugged in, the more you forget who you are. Let's talk about social media. In the beginning, it was a tool for connection. Now it's an altar of comparison, projection, and spiritual amnesia. Every scroll is a microcut to your energy field. And you don't notice the bleeding until your self-worth is on the floor and your intuition is whispering to a mind too distracted to hear. You see, these platforms are built on the principle of dopamine manipulation. Every like, comment, share, a hit. a false spark that mimics spiritual fulfillment but leaves you emptier each time. And what's worse, you're not just consuming content, you're consuming energy. The vibration of the person who posted it, their fears, their ego, their unresolved pain, it enters you, it lingers. You don't scroll past it, you absorb it. And the algorithm, it's not just pushing content. It's training your frequency, teaching your nervous system to crave chaos, comparison, outrage, and noise. You think you're choosing what to view, but the digital temple already knows what will keep you inside. It studies your shadows, it learns your weaknesses, it feeds your wounds, and then it loops over and over until you forget that your body was once a compass, until you forget that silence was once a teacher, until you forget that your soul was never meant to scroll through life. Then there's news media, a temple of fear built to keep you reactive, not informed. Reactive. Every headline is a spell. Every anchor is a high priest of panic. And if you're not conscious, you start to mistake urgency for truth. You start to believe that because something is loud, it's important. But truth doesn't scream. Truth doesn't manipulate. Truth doesn't flood your nervous system with cortisol and call it awareness. And yet we keep returning to these places, thinking we're being responsible citizens, when in reality we're being spiritually sedated, trained to look outward, to fear the future, to forget the present moment. And the cost, your peace, your clarity, your power. Even entertainment platforms, yes, the shows, movies, and games you binge, they're not all innocent. Many are encoded with frequencies that distort your perception of reality. They glamorize dysfunction. They normalize addiction to drama. They obscure the line between fantasy and truth. And while a story can be healing, too much unconscious consumption becomes a ritual of energetic decay. You don't even realize it's happening. You laugh, you cry, you cheer, but your soul is being reprogrammed. And over time, the archetypes you watch begin to live inside you. You start to think like them, feel like them, react like them, and suddenly your vibration is no longer yours. It belongs to the machine. So let's ask the question that most never dare to ask. What does your screen time say about your soul time? Are you connecting to source or to the simulation? Because here's the brutal truth. Every moment you spend in a digital temple that doesn't honor your divinity is a moment you're not building your field. Every hour lost to unconscious content is an hour you didn't spend listening to your own spirit. We say we don't have time to meditate, to breathe, to heal, but we have time to scroll for hours, to binge entire seasons, to absorb vibration after vibration with no awareness of how it's shaping our thoughts, choices, and destiny. The digital world isn't evil, but it is alive. It has its own entities, its own egregores, its own psychic architecture. And if you're not grounded, if you're not intentional, you become a puppet inside a frequency web that was never made to set you free. It was made to keep you asleep, just conscious enough to consume, but never conscious enough to awaken. So how do you fight back? You unplug, not just from the device, but from the spell. You reclaim your focus. You set rituals, not routines. You treat your attention like sacred currency. You fast from noise. You choose content that elevates. You become the guardian of your own field. Because once you recognize these digital temples for what they are, you stop worshipping at their altar and you start building your own. You start remembering silence. You start listening to the voice beneath the noise. You start feeling again, not through a screen, but through breath, through stillness, through presence. And that's when the parasites can no longer feed, because you're no longer leaking light. You're guarding it, protecting it, amplifying it. And that is how you begin to rise. The inverted sanctuaries, when sacred places become spiritually dangerous. There's a deeper deception in the spiritual world that few dare to speak about because it hides where you least expect it. Not in dark alleys or abandoned buildings, not in chaotic environments, but in places labeled sacred, in temples, churches, retreat centers, yoga studios, meditation halls. These are the places we run to when we seek healing, clarity, connection. And yet, in some of these spaces, not all, but enough, something is deeply wrong. Something inverted. Something that looks like light, speaks like light, but moves with the frequency of distortion. These are the inverted sanctuaries. Places that once held sacred codes, but have now become spiritually dangerous. You walk in expecting peace, you bow, you chant, you meditate. But if you're energetically aware, you feel a strange undercurrent, something off, something that doesn't align with the outer appearance, and you brush it off, because who would believe you? This is a sacred space after all. But the truth is, not all sacred spaces stay sacred. Energy can be corrupted. Lineage can be lost. Intention can be hijacked. And when that happens, what was once a portal to the divine becomes a trap, a place where seekers unknowingly feed systems of control, hierarchy, and spiritual ego. Let's begin with the ancient truth. Any space that draws collective spiritual attention becomes a beacon, and not just for the light. It becomes a battleground of frequencies, a spiritual hotspot. And if the space is not constantly cleansed, guarded, and anchored in truth, it begins to absorb the unresolved energy of those who enter. The trauma, the projections, the spiritual pride. Over time, the space no longer serves the divine, it starts serving the dominant frequency of the people using it. And if those people are unhealed, unaware, or secretly feeding their own ego through spiritual performance, then the sanctuary mutates. It becomes an echo chamber, a mirror of illusion. And that illusion is powerful because it wears the mask of holiness. Have you ever walked into a spiritual space and felt performance instead of presence? I felt judgment beneath the smiles. Felt competition in the silence. That's not your imagination. That's energetic inversion. Because in true sacred space, your soul relaxes. Your nervous system releases. There's no pressure to perform. There's no need to impress. There is just truth, just alignment. But in inverted sanctuaries, the energy feels tight, artificial, polished on the outside, but hollow within. And if you stay too long in those environments, you begin to take on their frequency. You become more concerned with looking spiritual than being spiritual. You start mimicking practices instead of embodying presence. You get caught in the hierarchy, the rules, the rituals, and forget the reason you came. And what's more dangerous than a dark place? A place that pretends to be light. Because when you're in an obviously toxic environment, your defenses are up. Your awareness is sharp. But in a place labeled sacred, your guard is down. Your inner child is open. Your seeker is exposed. And that's when the corruption enters. Not as possession, not as attack, but as subtle reprogramming. You start to absorb beliefs that don't serve you. You start to accept authority that doesn't resonate. You start to follow teachers who are more interested in your dependence than your liberation. And you think you're growing, but you're actually being tamed, dimmed, controlled not by force, but by spiritual manipulation. So I ask you a question that could change everything. Are you in love with the truth or the performance of truth? Because if the space you go to for healing is built on image, hierarchy, tradition without soul, or spiritual egoism, then it is not a sanctuary. It is a stage. And if you're not careful, you'll become an actor in someone else's play, reciting mantras you don't feel, wearing symbols you don't understand, following rules that don't liberate you. That's not spiritual growth. That's spiritual gaslighting. And the worst part, you'll think the problem is you, that you're not enlightened enough, not disciplined enough, not worthy enough, when in truth you were just in the wrong field. Real sacred space doesn't make you feel small. It doesn't tell you the guru knows better. It doesn't demand your silence in the face of your own discomfort. Real sacred space awakens your authority. It sharpens your discernment. It invites your full presence, not your performance. And if a temple, church, retreat, or spiritual leader makes you feel like you must abandon your truth to belong, then leave. Do it without guilt, without apology, because your soul was not born to kneel at the feet of false light. It was born to embody light. That's not rebellion. That's remembering. So how do you protect yourself? You develop spiritual discernment. Not suspicion, not cynicism, but discernment. You listen to your body before you listen to the branding. You trust your energy before you trust the words. You question everything, even the things that feel good, because sometimes comfort is the most dangerous spell of all. And most importantly, you stay in relationship with your own inner sanctuary. You recognize that the most sacred space on earth is within you. If a temple doesn't amplify that, it's not holy, it's hollow. And the moment you reclaim that truth, you stop outsourcing your divinity. You stop seeking validation from external spaces. You stop mistaking approval for alignment. And you begin walking as the sanctuary itself, unshakable, sovereign, and spiritually untouchable. The final battlefield, people as portals of corruption. We like to believe that spiritual protection is about shielding ourselves from places, objects, or technologies. But the final battlefield is far more intimate, it's human. Because the most powerful carriers of vibration on earth are people. And while people can uplift, initiate, and heal us, they can also act as living portals through which darkness enters. Not because they're evil, not because they're possessed, but because they are unaware. And an unaware human leaking pain, bitterness, or ego can become more spiritually dangerous than any haunted location, because you let them close, closer than your boundaries, closer than your discernment. And what passes between you in that space is not just words, it's frequency. No one wants to admit this. We want to believe love is enough, that good intentions are enough, but energy doesn't lie. And when someone is carrying unresolved trauma, deep envy, hidden agendas, or spiritual mimicry, it seeps into the connection. You feel it in conversations that exhaust you, in friendships that feel like emotional extraction, in relationships where you're always healing, always managing, always dimming your light to avoid triggering them. That's not just emotional imbalance, that's energetic compromise. And over time, it doesn't just affect your mood, it alters your field. Have you ever spent time with someone and walked away feeling foggy, drained, or suddenly unsure of yourself? That's not just social fatigue. That's a vibrational entanglement. Because when two people connect, even briefly, their fields interact. And if one person's field is heavy with unprocessed pain or egoic distortion, it can create a leak in yours. You start to carry their fear like it's your own. You start thinking thoughts that don't feel like yours. You start doubting your intuition. And the more emotionally attached you are to the person, the more vulnerable your field becomes. Now here's the hardest truth. Some of the most draining, corrupting energies come from the people we love the most. Family, partners, mentors, friends. And we excuse it. We say they're just going through something or they don't mean to hurt me. But this isn't about blame. This is about awareness. Because when someone is chronically operating from a wounded frequency and you continue to let them into your sacred space, you are not just tolerating dysfunction. You are inviting corruption. Not because you're weak, but because your field is open. And when your field is open and unguarded, you absorb, you internalize, you become the emotional dumping ground. And the most dangerous part is, it happens slowly, gradually. A comment here, a guilt trip there, a pattern that repeats and drains you, but you keep calling it love. Until one day, you wake up and realize you don't recognize yourself anymore. You've become a caretaker to someone else's shadow. You've sacrificed your own peace to manage someone else's chaos. So what do? You remember this. Love does not require energetic self-destruction. Compassion does not mean proximity. Forgiveness does not mean access. You can love someone and still remove them from your energetic temple. You can pray for their healing while fiercely protecting your own. That's not selfish, that's sovereignty. And in this final battlefield, sovereignty is your sword. You must begin to see people clearly, not just for who they are, but for the frequency they carry. Not with judgment, but with discernment. Who leaves you feeling expanded after a conversation? Who consistently leaves you feeling small, confused, or off balance? Who speaks in ways that activate your spirit, and who subtly diminishes it? These are not trivial questions. They are survival codes. Because in a world where energy is the true currency, your associations are contracts, and some of those contracts are draining your light in exchange for nothing. We are not taught to protect our field from people. We are taught to people please, to be nice, to keep the peace. But peace that costs your vibration is not peace, it is spiritual taxation. And no soul came here to pay the price forever. You came here to radiate, to remember, to rise. And that means being willing to walk away from any person, no matter how close, who pulls you out of alignment with your higher self. Because here's the final truth: people are either amplifying your light or feeding off it. There is very little in between. And the moment you accept that, not with fear, but with clarity, you become untouchable. You become the guardian of your own temple. You stop waiting to be saved, seen, or validated. You see yourself. You protect yourself. You rebuild your field, one conscious relationship at a time. And that's how you win the battle. Not by fighting darkness, but by refusing to house it. Not by judging others, but by choosing yourself. Not through force, but through frequency. You are the field. You are the temple. Guard it with everything you have.